She baked the wedding cake they stole, and when the lie was served in front of Chicago's richest families, the most feared man in the city walked through the doors. What would you do if the people who were supposed to love you used your silence as permission to erase you? Maya Bennett stood in a glittering hotel ballroom wearing a dress chosen to make her disappear, watching her sister smile beside a cake Maya had spent sleepless nights creating. Every sugar flower carried a scar. Every golden line held a prayer to finally be seen, but her family called it someone else's masterpiece. This story is not just about revenge. It is about power, betrayal, love, and the moment a quiet woman stops begging for a place at the table. Stay until the end, like the video and comment where you're watching from. Before the ballroom, before the lie, before Dominic Vale stepped through those doors and made Chicago's finest choke on their champagne, there was Maya Bennett alone in a tiny kitchen trying to turn exhaustion into something beautiful. 10 days before Blair's wedding, Maya woke before the sun. Her apartment in Pilsen was still dark, except for the thin orange glow of the street lamp leaking through the blinds. The radiator coughed in the corner like an old man with secrets. Somewhere below, a delivery truck groaned against the curb and a dog barked twice before the city settled back into its cold morning silence. Maya lay still for a moment, staring at the ceiling. Her body hurt before she moved. Her shoulders ached from rolling fondant. Her wrists were stiff from piping sample borders. Her back felt like someone had folded her in half and left her that way. Still, she sat up, pushed her hair out of her face, and reached for the notebook on the floor beside her bed. The page was already open. Blair's wedding cake, 5 tiers, champagne buttercream, winter pear filling, white sugar roses, gold-painted veins like marble cracked under pressure. Maya ran her thumb along the sketch, careful not to smudge the pencil lines. She had redrawn the cake 12 times, not because Blair had asked her to, but because Maya could not stop seeing ways to make it better. The design had to look expensive without looking loud, soft without looking plain, elegant without feeling cold. Blair had explained it over lunch 2 weeks earlier, waving one perfect hand above her salad. "I want it to feel timeless," Blair had said, "like old money but fresh, like Paris but not obvious, like something nobody else in Chicago could get." Maya had nodded, writing every word down. Then Blair had smiled and added, "And please do not make it too homemade." Maya had looked up from her notebook. Homemade. You know what I mean. She did know. She always knew what Blair meant when Blair pretended not to say it. Maya slipped out of bed and crossed into the kitchen. It was barely wide enough for her to turn around with the refrigerator door open. Cake pans were stacked above the cabinets. Bags of flour sat in neat rows under the small table. Gel colors, edible pearls, brushes, blades, piping tips, and sugar paste tools filled every drawer. Her kitchen looked less like a home and more like a place where a quiet person had hidden an entire future. She turned on the overhead light. It flickered twice, then held. On the counter, a bowl of pears waited beneath a clean towel. She lifted the cloth, breathed in the sweet green scent, and whispered, "Let's try again." The first batch had been too soft, the second too sweet. Blair wanted guests to remember the cake, but not too much. Evelyn, their mother, had said the flavor should be refined. Charles, their father, had said no one came to a wedding for cake. Maya had smiled through that dinner. Then she had gone home and stayed awake until 4 a.m., testing fillings no one had thanked her for. She peeled the pears slowly, letting the ribbons of skin fall into a silver bowl. Outside, Chicago was waking. Trains rattled somewhere in the distance. Pipes knocked behind the wall. The apartment smelled of butter, vanilla, and cold air. For a few minutes, Maya felt peaceful. Then her phone lit up. "Blair, make sure the flowers are not too big. Preston's mother hates anything dramatic." Maya stared at the message. Another one appeared. "Also, Mom says the cake table needs to look professional. Can you bring your own risers or whatever?" Then a third, "Do not be late. I cannot deal with a crisis because you got overwhelmed." Maya placed the phone face down and pressed both palms to the counter. She counted to 5, then to 10. The pears began to brown. She picked up the knife again. The Bennett family did not shout very often. That was one of the things people misunderstood about cruelty. They imagined slammed doors and broken plates. In the Bennett house, cruelty wore pearl earrings. It folded napkins in perfect squares. It smiled across polished wood and said things gently enough that anyone bleeding looked dramatic. Maya had learned that early. At 10, she made a birthday cake for her mother. It was crooked and covered in too much frosting, but she had mixed the batter herself, standing on a chair in her grandmother's kitchen. She had colored the icing pale pink because Evelyn liked blush roses. When she carried it into the dining room, Blair was already there in a white dress, showing off a piano piece she had memorized for the guests. Everyone clapped. Maya waited with the cake in both hands. Evelyn looked over and smiled. "Oh, sweetheart, put that in the kitchen before it makes a mess." No one tasted it until hours later. By then, the candles had sunk into the frosting. Her grandmother Lillian found her sitting under the kitchen table, twisting the hem of her shirt. "Come here, little bird," Lillian said. Maya crawled out. Grandma Lillian cut a slice with a butter knife and took a bite like it was something precious. "Well," she said, her eyes warm, "this tastes like somebody trying very hard to love someone." Maya never forgot that. Maybe that was why she kept baking. Not because her family noticed, but because one person had. Years later, after Lillian died, Charles took over the old building in Pilsen, where Maya now lived. He called it a temporary arrangement. He said it gave Maya time to get serious. Maya had been getting serious for years. She sold cakes on weekends through a small coffee shop in Wicker Park. She made birthday cakes for clients who cried when they saw them. She worked late shifts at a catering kitchen and saved every spare dollar for equipment. She studied food safety rules, watched pastry videos until her eyes burned, and kept a folder titled Future Studio on her laptop. But to Charles Bennett, real success had a suit a skyline view and men shaking hands over contracts. A bakery was flour on your sleeve. A bakery was cute. A bakery was not something his daughter did unless she had failed at everything else. That Friday evening, Maya carried a box of cake samples into her parents' Gold Coast townhouse. The house glowed behind black iron gates, all warm windows and old money confidence. Inside, the floors shone like water. White orchids lined the entry table. A housekeeper took Maya's coat before Evelyn could notice she had arrived in boots with salt stains. Blair stood in the living room beside Preston Hale, her fiancé, a tall man with careful hair and a smile that seemed trained by private schools. Evelyn hovered near them with a glass of wine. Charles stood by the fireplace, already bored. "There she is," Evelyn said, though her tone made it sound as if Maya had been missing from a painting, not a family. Maya lifted the box. "I brought the final samples." Blair clapped once softly. "Perfect. Put them in the dining room. Not hello, not thank you, just placement." Maya set the box on the long dining table and opened it. Inside were small slices arranged in rows: champagne vanilla, winter pear, dark chocolate espresso, almond cream, each one labeled in Maya's careful handwriting. Preston took a bite first. His eyebrows rose. "This is incredible." The room went quiet. Maya looked down, unsure what to do with praise when it arrived in public. Blair reached quickly for the same fork and tasted the cake. "Yes," she said, "it is nice." Preston looked at Maya. "You made all of these?" Maya nodded. "I did." He smiled. "You have a real gift." Before Maya could answer, Blair laughed. "She has always been good with little projects." Charles picked up a slice, studied it, and set it back down without tasting. "Is the structure stable?" Maya blinked. "Yes. It will not collapse in front of 300 people. Good. That would be embarrassing." Evelyn touched Maya's elbow. "Your father only means this is an important day for Blair." Of course he did. Everything was an important day for Blair. Her dance recitals, her graduations, her engagement party, her bridal shower, her dress fitting, her seating chart crisis, her flower emergency. Maya's life existed in the spaces between Blair's important days. At dinner, Charles asked Preston about his father's campaign donors. Evelyn asked Blair about the photographer from New York. Blair described the custom veil, the imported linens, the private string quartet. Maya sat with her hands in her lap. When she mentioned that a cafe customer had asked about a possible wedding order for spring, Charles gave a small laugh. "A wedding cake from a coffee shop display case, that is ambitious." Maya felt heat rise behind her eyes. "I am trying to build a client list." "A client list is not a business," Charles said. "A business requires capital discipline in a market that respects you." Blair sipped her wine. "Maybe she can do birthday cakes for children. People love that kind of thing." Evelyn gave a light warning sound. "Blair, what I am being supportive." Preston looked uncomfortable. Maya noticed because she had spent her life noticing discomfort no one else wanted to name. She reached for her water glass and said nothing. Silence had always been her safest dress. The next morning, Blair summoned her to the bridal boutique for final fittings. The shop smelled of perfume, champagne, and new silk. Blair stood on a platform in her wedding gown, surrounded by mirrors and women murmuring admiration. The dress hugged her like it had been born for her. Ivory satin, long sleeves, tiny pearls stitched across the bodice. Evelyn dabbed at her eyes. "You look like Grace Kelly." Blair smiled at her reflection. "I know." The other bridesmaids wore champagne gowns that skimmed their bodies in soft, graceful lines. They looked elegant, uniform, expensive. Then the seamstress rolled out Maya's dress. Pale yellow, stiff fabric, high neck, awkward sleeves. A waistline that landed in the wrong place no matter how Maya stood. Maya touched the dress and looked at Blair through the mirror. "Is this mine?" Blair did not turn around. "Yes. It came late, but I think it suits you. It is different from the others. You said you did not care about dresses. I said I did not want to make anything harder. Exactly." The seamstress busied herself with pins. Maya stepped into the dress behind a curtain. The zipper resisted halfway up. The fabric scratched under her arms. When she came out, the room softened into that terrible silence people use when they see something unkind and decide not to stop it. Blair tilted her head. "There. Sweet." Maya looked at herself in the mirror and saw what Blair wanted everyone else to see. The plain sister. The quiet sister. The one who did not belong near the center of the photograph. Evelyn stepped close and adjusted the collar. "It is only for one day, darling." Maya met her mother's eyes in the mirror. "Why this dress?" Evelyn's smile trembled, then hardened. "Because your sister chose it. That was the whole law of the Bennett family. Blair chose. Maya endured. In the days that followed, the cake took over the apartment. Maya baked test layers and froze them. She whipped buttercream until it shone like satin. She simmered pears with vanilla bean and a touch of lemon until the whole kitchen smelled like winter sunlight. She measured dowels, stacked dummy tiers, checked weight, tested humidity, and made sugar flowers until her fingertips cramped. One flower broke in her hand at 2 a.m. She stared at the shattered petals in her palm. Then she laughed once too softly to be healthy. Of course, she threw it away and started over. Her phone buzzed constantly. Blair wanted thinner gold lines. Evelyn wanted to know whether Maya planned to wear proper makeup. Blair wanted assurance that the cake would not taste too unusual. Evelyn asked if Maya could arrive early to help with family photos. Blair sent a picture of a French cake and wrote, "This is the feeling. Make yours like this, but not copied." Maya did not answer most of them. She put on an old jazz record because silence felt too much like surrender. Trumpet notes floated through the kitchen while snow tapped the window. She rolled sugar paste so thin the light passed through it. She shaped petals over foam. She dusted the edges with pearl powder. She wired each flower by hand and set them on trays to dry. By dawn, the table looked like a garden made from moonlight. Maya leaned against the counter and let herself smile. That was when she remembered Dominic Vale. 6 months earlier, on a rainy afternoon, he had walked into the coffee shop where Maya sold weekend cakes from a corner display case. The place was nearly empty. Rain dragged gray lines down the front windows. Maya was wiping the counter while the owner argued with a supplier in the back. The bell over the door rang once. Every person inside looked up. Dominic Vale did not look like a man who needed to raise his voice. He wore a charcoal coat over a black suit. No tie, no visible jewelry except a watch that probably cost more than Maya's car. His hair was dark, his eyes darker, and his stillness changed the room before he said a word. 2 men waited near the door behind him. Maya knew his name because everyone in Chicago knew his name, even if they pretended not to. Dominic Vale owned restaurants, clubs, warehouses, private security firms, and pieces of businesses that never appeared on paper. Some called him a businessman. Some called him worse. Her grandmother would have called him dangerous, and then offered him coffee. Dominic stopped in front of the cake case. Inside sat Maya's dark chocolate orange cake, topped with candied peel and a glaze so glossy it reflected the lights. He looked at it for a long time. Then he said, "Who made this?" The owner pointed toward Maya too quickly. She did. Maya wiped her hands on her apron. I did. Dominic looked at her, not through her. That alone was unsettling. What is in it? Dark chocolate orange zest, espresso, a little clove. Why clove? Maya swallowed. Because chocolate can feel heavy. Clove makes it feel like it remembers something. The owner laughed nervously. Dominic did not. He bought the entire cake. No small talk, no performance, just cash on the counter and one last glance at Maya before he left. An hour later, the shop phone rang. The owner answered, turned pale, and held the receiver out. For you. Maya took it. A man with a calm voice said, Mr. Vale wants a custom cake. For what occasion? A pause. His mother's birthday. Maya wrote the details on a napkin because her hands were shaking too badly to find her notebook. The order was strange. No party, no message on the cake, no delivery crowd. Dominic wanted something personal, but he gave almost nothing away. His mother had loved pistachios, honey green glass, old jazz records, and Sunday mornings by an open window. Maya spent 3 days thinking about that cake. She made pistachio sponge, honey cream, thin layers of apricot, and a glaze the color of pale green glass. Around the base, she painted tiny gold lines like sunlight catching dust in a quiet room. When Dominic came to pick it up, the cafe owner vanished into the back. Maya placed the cake on the counter. Dominic stared at it. A full minute passed. Maya almost apologized. She had that sickness in her, the need to apologize before anyone accused her. Then Dominic said, You listen better than most people speak. The words struck someplace deep. Maya looked down. Thank you. He did not move. Do they know? She frowned. Who the people who keep making you look over your shoulder? Her heart thudded once. I do not know what you mean. Dominic glanced toward the small, framed family photo taped near the register. It had been taken at Blair's engagement party. Blair and Evelyn stood in the middle. Charles smiled beside Preston. Maya was at the edge, half cut from the frame, holding a tray of champagne glasses, because someone had mistaken her for staff, and no one corrected them. Dominic looked back at her. Yes, you do. Maya felt exposed and angry because of it. You do not know me. No, he said, but I know erasure when I see it. His assistant handed him the cake box. Dominic reached into his coat and placed a black card on the counter. No logo, just a name and a number. If the day comes when they take something from you and expect you to thank them for the theft, call me. Maya let out a nervous breath. That is a very dramatic thing to say over cake. His mouth softened at one corner. Cake is rarely just cake. Then he left. Maya kept the card in her junk drawer for 2 months, then in her wallet, then tucked behind her driver's license where she could pretend she had forgotten about it. She had not forgotten. On the night before the wedding, Maya finished the final tier at 3:17 a.m. The apartment was destroyed. Bowls filled the sink. Powdered sugar dusted the floor. A smear of gold paint marked her wrist. Her hair was pinned up badly with 2 pencils. Her hands were raw from washing, shaping, lifting, correcting, but the cake was perfect. The 5 tiers stood on the work table beneath the kitchen light, each one separate for transport, each one waiting to become whole. The white roses looked soft enough to bruise. The gold veins caught the light with quiet confidence. The pear filling rested in sealed containers. The buttercream chilled. The structure was ready. Maya stepped back and covered her mouth. For one dangerous second she let herself imagine it. Blair standing beside the cake smiling for real. Evelyn touching Maya's hand. Charles clearing his throat and saying, You did well. Not much. Maya did not dream greedily. Just one sentence. You did well. Her phone lit up on the counter. Blair, do not tell people you made the cake unless they ask directly. It might look cheap if everyone knows it was done by family. Maya read the message. The kitchen went very quiet. Another text appeared. I know you get emotional, so please do not make this weird tomorrow. Maya placed the phone down carefully. There were moments when pain did not feel sharp. It felt clean, like cold water poured slowly over the heart. She looked at the cake again. Every flower was still beautiful. That almost made it worse. Maya walked to the sink and washed the gold from her wrist. The water turned faintly metallic before it disappeared down the drain. She dried her hands, took the black card from her wallet, and set it beside the cake. Dominic Vale. The letters looked severe under the kitchen light. She stared at them for a long time. Then she slid the card back into her wallet. No, she whispered to the empty room. Just get through tomorrow. She packed the tools, checked the supports, rechecked the delivery schedule, wrote notes in careful black ink. By the time the sky began to pale over the rooftops, Maya had not slept at all. She changed into jeans and an old sweater, then stood in front of the mirror above her dresser. Her face looked thinner in the morning light. Tired eyes, flour near her hairline, a small burn on her wrist from the oven rack. She studied herself the way she studied cracked sugar, trying to understand where the weak point had formed. Her phone buzzed once more. Evelyn this time. Remember, sweetheart, today is about Blair. Please be easy. Maya closed her eyes. Easy. That was what they called her when she had no needs. Easy. That was what they called her when she swallowed hurt without making anyone uncomfortable. Easy. That was what they called a daughter who had learned to disappear on command. Maya opened her eyes and looked toward the kitchen where the cake waited in pieces, white and gold and silent. Then she picked up her coat, lifted the first carefully packed box, and carried it toward the door. Maya carried the first cake box down the narrow stairwell as the sky over Pilsen turned the color of wet steel. The building was quiet, but the city was already breathing. Tires hissed over slush. A train rattled somewhere beyond the rooftops. Cold air slipped through the cracks around the front door and found the sweat at the back of her neck. She paused on the last step and tightened her grip. The box was not heavy compared to what it held. White sugar roses, gold-painted veins, pear and champagne, and 3 sleepless nights. A piece of herself packed in cardboard and hope. Her old car waited by the curb with the back seats folded down and towels layered across the floor. Maya had borrowed foam supports from the catering kitchen and taped warnings across every surface. Fragile, do not tilt, this side up, as if any warning label could protect the things people wanted to take. She loaded the tiers one by one, checking each box twice before closing the door. Her breath smoked in the morning air. Her hands were steady, but only because she forced them to be. When she slid into the driver's seat, her phone buzzed. Blair, are you on the way? Maya looked through the windshield at the snow dusting the hood of the car. She typed, yes. Another message appeared almost instantly. Do not use the main entrance. Go through service. The photographer will be there early. Maya stared at the screen. The words were small, ordinary, easy to defend. Blair could say she meant nothing by them. Blair could say Maya was sensitive. Blair could say it was practical. Maya placed the phone in the cup holder and started the engine. The drive to the Langford Hotel felt longer than it should have. Every pothole made her pulse jump. Every red light seemed personal. She spoke softly to the boxes in the back as if they were children asleep under blankets. Almost there. Please do not betray me now. By the time she reached the Gold Coast, the city had dressed itself for wealth. The buildings grew taller. The sidewalks looked cleaner. The hotel rose at the corner like it had been carved from cream-colored stone, its brass doors shining beneath the awning, its windows glowing gold against the gray morning. Maya drove past the front entrance, where attendants in long coats opened doors for arriving vendors, with expensive floral arrangements and pressed garment bags. She turned into the narrow service lane behind the hotel. A kitchen manager met her near the loading dock, rubbing his hands against the cold. You, Bennett. Yes, you got the cake. Maya opened the car door. He looked inside and went still. Oh, he said. It was not a loud reaction, but it was honest. 2 hotel pastry staff helped her carry the boxes inside. The kitchen smelled of coffee butter, roasted meat, and polished steel. People moved quickly around her, but when the first tier came out of the box, they slowed. One woman in a white coat leaned closer. You made this? Maya nodded. Alone, mostly. The woman looked at the sugar roses, then at Maya's wrapped fingers. Honey, nobody makes something like this mostly alone. The words warmed Maya more than the kitchen air. She wanted to tuck them away somewhere safe. They assembled the cake in the service area behind the ballroom. Maya checked the supports, placed each tier, adjusted the alignment, and stood back as the final shape came alive. 5 tiers rising like a winter tower. The gold veins caught the light. The roses seemed to open across the sides, delicate and patient. For one quiet second, the room around her disappeared. Then Blair walked in. Her hair was already styled, swept into a perfect low knot. A silk robe clung to her shoulders, white with her initials stitched in gold. Behind her came Evelyn, holding a garment bag and wearing the tight smile she used when she wanted everyone to behave. Blair stopped in front of the cake. She said nothing. Maya waited. Blair circled it slowly, her eyes moving over every detail. She touched the edge of one sugar flower with her fingernail. "Do not touch that," Maya said before she could stop herself. Blair's gaze snapped to her. The kitchen staff pretended not to listen. Maya swallowed. "It is delicate." Blair's smile returned, thinner than before. "It is good." Evelyn exhaled with relief. "Thank God." Maya looked at her mother. Evelyn did not seem to notice. Blair adjusted the sleeve of her robe. "It almost looks professional." The pastry woman in the white coat glanced sharply at Maya, but Maya kept her face still. "It is professional," Maya said. Blair's eyes cooled. "Let's not start today. I am not starting anything, you know what I mean." There it was again. That family sentence, the one that meant Maya had stepped too close to the truth. Blair moved nearer so only Maya could hear. "People are going to ask where it came from. I need the answer to sound appropriate." Maya looked at the cake, then back at her sister. "The answer is that I made it." Blair laughed softly, not because anything was funny. "Maya, the Hales invited judges, donors, board members, half of Preston's father's world. I am not telling them my little sister baked my wedding cake in an apartment kitchen." Maya felt the words sink through her. "You asked me to make it, and I trusted you, which was generous." Evelyn stepped between them with a small, nervous flutter of her hand. "Girls, please. Today is not the day." Maya almost smiled. Today was never the day. Not the day to be hurt. Not the day to speak. Not the day to be seen. Blair turned away first. "Just stay near the bridesmaids, and please fix your face before photos." Maya watched her sister leave. The pastry woman waited until Blair and Evelyn were gone before she whispered, "For what it is worth, that cake is yours no matter what she says." Maya looked down at her hands. The bandage on her thumb had a spot of red showing through. "Thank you." By noon, the hotel had transformed into a machine built to worship Blair. Florists rushed through the halls with white roses. Photographers moved like hunters. Hairstylists, makeup artists, coordinators, cousins, bridesmaids, and hotel staff filled every corner with movement and perfume. Maya changed into the yellow dress in a small side room near the ballroom. The fabric pinched under her arms. The collar sat too high on her throat. Beside the other bridesmaids in their soft champagne gowns, she looked like a mistake someone had decided to keep. When she stepped into the bridal suite, conversation thinned. Blair turned from the mirror. "Oh, Maya." Evelyn pressed her lips together. A bridesmaid named Celeste looked down at her phone. Maya smoothed the skirt. "The zipper sticks." Blair smiled at her reflection. "Then do not breathe too much." The room laughed because Blair made it sound like a joke. Maya smiled because that was what the room expected from her. During the ceremony, she stood at the end of the line and watched Charles walk Blair down the aisle. Her father's face was transformed by pride. He held Blair's hand like she was something rare, something worth presenting to the world. Maya tried not to stare. She tried not to remember every school event he had missed, every cake order he had mocked, every time he had looked through her as if she were a window. Blair reached Preston, and the crowd sighed. The vows were polished. The music swelled. Evelyn cried beautifully. Maya stood in yellow under the soft altar lights and felt invisible in front of 300 people. By the reception, the ballroom looked like a dream someone had bought in bulk. Crystal chandeliers glittered above white roses and gold flatware. Champagne flowed. The band played low jazz from a raised platform. Snow drifted beyond the tall windows, turning Lakeshore Drive into a blur of headlights. The cake stood near the center of the room. Guests stopped beside it again and again. How exquisite. Blair has such taste. That must have come from New York. No, Europe, surely. Maya heard everything. She stood near the service door with a glass of water she had not touched. Her feet hurt. Her head hummed from lack of sleep. But whenever someone admired the cake, a small, foolish part of her waited. Maybe Blair would say it once. Maybe Evelyn would pull someone aside. Maybe Charles would surprise her. Then Preston's mother approached the cake with a woman in diamonds. Blair, she called, this is extraordinary. Who made it? Blair was glowing beside her new husband, one hand resting lightly on his sleeve. She looked toward the cake and smiled as if she had personally dreamed it into existence. Maya stepped half an inch forward. Blair did not look at her. "Oh, isn't it divine?" Blair said. "It was flown in from a boutique pastry house in Paris. Preston insisted we have only the best." The room made a sound of pleased approval. Paris. Maya felt the word move through the crowd like perfume. Of course. How elegant. You can always tell. No one in Chicago does work like that. Maya's fingers went cold around the water glass. Her body stayed still, but something inside her took one step backward and fell. Blair glanced over then, just briefly. Their eyes met across the golden room. Blair's mouth curved. Not enough for anyone else to see, just enough for Maya. Then Blair mouthed one word. "Don't." The glass in Maya's hand trembled. She set it down before it could break and walked out of the ballroom. The hallway was cooler, lined with mirrors and framed paintings of old Chicago winters. The sound of laughter softened behind the doors. Maya pressed one hand to the wall and tried to breathe through the tightness in her chest. It was only a cake. That was what they would say. It was only credit. It was only a wedding. It was only family. Her reflection stared back from the mirror in the yellow dress, pale and small and furious in a way she did not know how to use. "Maya." Her father's voice came from the end of the hall. She turned. Charles Bennett walked toward her with a drink in one hand and an envelope in the other. His tuxedo fit perfectly. His silver hair did not have a strand out of place. He stopped in front of her. "You need to collect yourself." Maya let out a breath that almost became a laugh. She lied. Charles's eyes narrowed. "Blair is managing perception. You should learn from her. I made that cake. And it is being admired, is it not?" Maya stared at him. He held out the envelope. "This is for you." She did not take it at first. What is it noticed to vacate? The hallway seemed to tilt. What the Pilsen building has been sold. You need to be out by Friday. Maya looked from the envelope to his face. "You are giving me an eviction notice at Blair's wedding. I am giving you reality. The apartment was never meant to be permanent. It was Grandma's building. It became my building when she died. She wanted me to have a place there." "Your grandmother was sentimental," Charles said. "I am practical." Maya's voice lowered. "Where am I supposed to go?" He looked almost bored. "Maybe having a real deadline will motivate you to stop playing Baker." The words landed without sound. Maya took the envelope because her hands moved before her mind could stop them. Her name was printed on the front in black ink. Maya Bennett. Cold. Official. Final. From the ballroom came applause. Blair and Preston were moving toward the cake. Charles turned his head toward the sound. "You are missing the cake cutting." Maya looked at him. "I made that cake because I thought maybe you would finally be proud of me." For the first time, a flicker crossed his face. Not guilt. Irritation. "Maya, do not be childish." There it was. The old cage. If she hurt, she was childish. If she spoke, she was dramatic. If she wanted, she was ungrateful. Charles stepped closer. "You will go back in there. You will smile. You will not embarrass this family any more than you already have." Maya looked at the envelope in her hand, then at the ballroom doors, then at her father. A strange calm moved through her. "No." Charles blinked. "What did you say?" Maya turned and walked away before her courage could notice what it had done. She found the coat room empty. Fur wraps and wool coats hung in neat rows, smelling of perfume and winter. She closed the door behind her and leaned against it. Her hands shook so hard she almost dropped her phone. She opened her wallet. The black card was still behind her driver's license. Dominic Vale. She stared at the number. This was insane. Calling him would make everything worse. Men like Dominic did not enter lives quietly. They changed the weather. They carried consequences in their pockets. But the ballroom had already stolen her work. Her father had already taken her home. Her family had already decided there was no version of Maya worth protecting. She pressed call. 1 ring. 2. Then his voice. "Maya." Her breath caught. He said her name like he had been expecting it. "I need help." The line went silent for one beat. "Where are you?" "The Langford. Blair's wedding." His voice changed. Not louder, colder. Are you hurt? Maya looked down at the envelope. Yes, she whispered, though no blood showed. Dominic understood. Stay where you are, Dominic. I do not want trouble. Then it is a shame they invited it. The call ended. Maya stayed in the coat room listening to the muffled celebration beyond the walls. She could hear the band now. A woman laughing, a burst of applause, silverware against plates. She folded the eviction notice once, then again pressing the crease hard with her thumb. 10 minutes passed. Then the ballroom changed. Maya felt it before she heard it. The laughter thinned, the music faltered. A hush spread outward like ink in water. She opened the coat room door. 2 men in black suits stood at the ballroom entrance. Behind them came Dominic Vale in a black overcoat dusted with snow. He did not hurry. He did not need to. The room made space for him as if every person inside had remembered an appointment elsewhere. Conversations stopped. Champagne glasses hovered near lips. Men who liked to pretend they feared no one suddenly studied the floor. Dominic's eyes moved once across the ballroom. Then they found Maya. Everything else in his face disappeared. He walked to her, not to Blair, not to Charles, not to the powerful men watching with tight jaws, to Maya in the ugly yellow dress holding an eviction notice like a wound. He stopped beside her. You called. Her throat tightened. I did. His gaze dropped briefly to the envelope in her hand, then returned to her face. Do you want me to leave? Maya looked toward the cake where Blair stood frozen with the knife in her hand. No. Dominic turned. Blair recovered first because Blair had spent her life turning panic into performance. Mr. Vale, she said, stepping forward with a bright smile. I do not believe we have met. Dominic looked at her offered hand. He did not take it. No. The single word stripped the smile from her face. Preston came to stand beside Blair. Dominic, this is a private event. Dominic's attention stayed on the cake. Beautiful work. Blair swallowed. Thank you. We had it brought in from a small pastry house in Paris, no, Dominic said. You did not? The silence that followed was so complete Maya could hear the ice shifting in someone's glass. Charles moved through the crowd. That is enough. Dominic reached into his coat and removed a folded packet. Marco, one of his men, stepped forward and placed several printed photographs on the nearest table. Maya's kitchen, Maya's hands shaping sugar petals, the cake tiers in progress, the sketch from her notebook, text messages from Blair asking for changes. Dominic's voice stayed quiet. Maya Bennett made this cake. 62 hours, 3 nights without sleep. 47 handmade flowers. Winter pear filling champagne buttercream gold detailing painted by hand. The room looked from the photographs to Maya. Heat rose in her cheeks. Not shame. Exposure. Blair's voice shook. You have no right to do this. Dominic looked at her. No, you had no right to steal it. Charles stepped closer, his face hard. You are interfering in a family matter. Dominic turned to him fully. Men who hand eviction notices to their daughters at weddings do not get to lecture me about family. A sound moved through the guests. Evelyn put one hand to her mouth. Charles went pale, then red. Maya felt everyone looking at her now, really looking, not past her, not around her, at her. It terrified her more than being ignored. Dominic did not touch her. He did not speak for her again. He simply stood there close enough to be a shield, far enough to leave the choice in her hands. Tell them, he said softly. Maya looked at Blair. Her sister's eyes were wet with fury. Maya, Blair whispered, Do not you dare. Maya looked at her mother. Evelyn shook her head once, almost pleading. Then Maya looked at Charles. Her father stared back like she was an employee about to make a costly mistake. Maya lifted her chin. I made the cake. Her voice came out thin. The room waited. She breathed again. I made it because Blair asked me to. I made it for free because my mother called it a family contribution. I made it in my apartment kitchen because that is where I work. And I stayed quiet because this family has taught me that being easy is safer than being honest. Blair's face twisted. You are ruining my wedding. Maya looked at the cake, then at the knife in Blair's hand. No, I am refusing to disappear inside it. The words were not loud, but they carried. For a moment, nobody moved. Then Maya reached behind her waist and untied the yellow sash. The fabric slipped loose. She let it fall to the marble floor. Blair made a small wounded sound as if the sash were the real victim. Charles took one step toward Maya. Dominic's men shifted at the same time. Charles stopped. Maya looked at her father and held out the envelope. "You can keep your notice." He did not take it, so she placed it on the cake table beside the photographs of her work. Then she turned toward the exit. Dominic opened a path without touching anyone. People moved aside. Some looked ashamed. Some looked thrilled to have witnessed a scandal. Some looked at Maya with something almost like respect. She walked barefoot before she realized she had taken off her heels. The cold hit her when they stepped outside. Snow fell over the hotel awning. The city sounded distant, softened by winter. Maya stood on the sidewalk in the yellow dress, breathing white into the night. Behind her, the Langford glowed as if nothing ugly could ever happen inside it. Dominic stood beside the black SUV with the door open. Maya looked back once. Through the glass, she could see shapes moving, Blair's white dress flashing between guests, Charles speaking sharply to someone, Evelyn standing still near the cake. Her old life had not ended cleanly. It had cracked in public. Dominic waited. Maya turned away from the hotel and stepped into the SUV. The leather seat was warm. Her hands were numb. The door closed with a soft, expensive sound, and for the first time all day, no one was telling her to smile. Dominic got in beside her. The car pulled away from the curb, leaving the hotel lights behind. Maya stared out the window as Chicago blurred past in black glass and falling snow. After a long silence, she said, "I do not know where I am supposed to go." Dominic looked at her reflection in the window. "For tonight," he said somewhere, "they cannot reach you." Maya folded her shaking hands in her lap. The yellow dress rustled when she breathed. Outside, the city opened around them, wide and dark and waiting. The city opened around them, wide and dark and waiting, but Maya did not feel free yet. She felt hollow. The kind of hollow that came after holding yourself together for too long. Her body still understood the wedding was over, but her mind had not caught up. It kept returning to the ballroom in sharp pieces. Blair's smile. Charles's envelope. Her own voice saying, "I made the cake." The yellow sash falling to the floor. The way everyone had looked at her as if she had stepped out of a wall. Inside the SUV, the heat ran softly through the vents. Snow melted on the windows and slipped down the glass in thin silver lines. Dominic sat beside her silent. He did not fill the air with questions. He did not tell her she had been brave. He did not reach for her hand. That should have made him feel colder. Instead, it made him feel safer. Maya stared at her reflection in the window. In the dark glass, she looked like someone else. Pale yellow dress. Bare feet tucked under her. Hair loosening from its pins. Mascara smudged at the corner of one eye. She looked less like a woman leaving a wedding and more like a ghost escaping the house where she died. Dominic's driver turned onto Lakeshore Drive. The lake was black beyond the railing, restless under the snow. Maya finally spoke. "Did you really have those photos the whole time?" Dominic looked at her. "Yes." Her throat tightened. "How Blair sent some of your process pictures to her planner." The planner forwarded them to the hotel kitchen. People are careless when they think no one important is watching. Maya turned from the window. "And you were watching." His face did not change. "I was paying attention. That sounds worse." "It can be." She searched his expression for amusement, ownership, satisfaction. He gave her none of it. Only calm. "Why?" she asked. Dominic looked out at the road ahead. "Because when I ordered my mother's cake, you made something out of 5 memories and silence. People with that kind of gift are rarely protected by the people closest to them." Maya's fingers curled into the ugly yellow fabric of her dress. "You do not know my family." "No," he said. "But I know men like your father." That made her look at him again. The lights moved over his face as the car passed beneath them. Gold shadow, gold shadow. He looked carved from restraint. "Men like my father," she asked. "Men who mistake control for love." Maya laughed once, but there was no humor in it. "My father does not mistake anything for love." Dominic's eyes shifted back to her. "Then he is poorer than he looks." The words landed strangely, not soft, not comforting, but clean. Maya looked down at her hands. The cuts on her fingers had reopened. Tiny red lines marked the edges of her bandages. She had spent 3 nights making flowers delicate enough to fool the eye, and now she could barely keep her own hands from shaking. "I have nowhere to go," she said. The sentence embarrassed her the moment it left her mouth. Dominic did not react as if he had been waiting for it. "For tonight you do. I am not moving in with you. I did not ask you to." "Good, good." The car fell quiet again. After several minutes, Dominic said, "There is a guest suite. Private floor, separate entrance if you want it. You can lock the door from inside." Maya studied him. "You say that like you have had to explain it before. I have learned that safety does not feel safe to people who have only known control." Her chest tightened. The SUV turned into an underground garage beneath a glass tower near the river. Security gates opened before the car stopped. Men in dark coats stood near the elevators, but no one stared at her. No one smirked at the dress. No one asked questions. Dominic stepped out first, then waited. Maya gathered the skirt of the dress and climbed out barefoot onto the cold concrete. One of the guards noticed her feet and looked away so quickly it almost made her cry. Dominic saw anyway. "Marco," he said. A tall man with close-cut hair appeared from near the elevator. "Yes, boss? Shoes? Size?" Maya blinked. "I can walk." Dominic looked at her feet, then at the wet concrete. That was not the question. 7.5. Marco nodded and disappeared. Maya folded her arms. "Do people always do what you say that fast, most people? That must be dangerous for your ego." His mouth moved slightly. "My ego survives worse." The elevator rose in silence. Maya watched the numbers climb. Her ears popped somewhere around the 40th floor. By the time the doors opened, she had braced herself for something obscene. Gold everywhere, chandeliers, velvet, some kind of masculine palace built to intimidate. Instead, Dominic's penthouse was quiet. Dark wood floors, low lamps, tall windows looking out over the city. Snow moved beyond the glass like ash. There were no bright colors, no clutter, no unnecessary decoration. The space felt expensive but not hungry for attention. A black piano stood near the window. On the wall beside it hung one framed photograph. A woman with dark hair laughing at something outside the frame. Maya stopped before she meant to. Dominic followed her gaze. "My mother. She looks kind." She was. That was all he said, but the silence after it held more than grief. It held a door he had closed and locked a long time ago. Marco arrived with a pair of soft black flats and a folded gray sweater. Maya took them. "Thank you." Marco nodded, eyes lowered with a kind of professional gentleness. Dominic gestured down a hallway. "Guest suite is at the end. Bathroom is stocked. There are clothes in the closet. They may not fit perfectly." Maya looked at him. "You keep women's clothes here, no? Then why are there clothes my sister visits when she wants to steal wine and judge my furniture?" Something in Maya eased just a little. "You have a sister, Had." The word closed the room. Maya did not ask. Not yet. In the guest bathroom, she peeled off the yellow dress and left it on the tile like shed skin. Her shoulders were marked red where the seams had dug in. She turned on the shower and stood under the hot water until her fingers wrinkled and the mirror fogged white. When she stepped out, she found a plain black t-shirt, soft sweatpants, and the gray sweater. The clothes were too large but clean, warm, anonymous. For the first time all day, she looked like herself, or like someone who might become herself if given enough time. She returned to the main room and found Dominic by the kitchen island sleeves rolled to his forearms making tea. The sight was so unexpected that she stopped walking. He glanced up. "What you make tea?" "I make several things." "Do any of them involve violence?" "Not before midnight." She almost smiled. He placed a mug in front of her. The tea smelled like honey and lemon. Maya wrapped both hands around it but did not drink. "I cannot pay you back for this. I did not ask. That does not make it better." Dominic leaned against the opposite counter. "No, it only makes it true." She looked at him over the steam. "I do not want to be another person you own." The words came out sharper than she intended, but she did not take them back. Dominic's gaze stayed on hers. "I do not collect people. People in Chicago would disagree. People in Chicago talk when they are afraid to ask." "And what should I ask?" His face grew still. "Ask what you need to know." Maya's heart beat hard. "Are you a criminal?" Dominic did not smile. "Yes." The answer was so direct that she lost her next breath. He continued, I also own legal businesses, restaurant security firms, real estate logistics, some clean, some not. I will not lie to you because lies are what brought you here. Maya stared at the tea. Then why should I trust you? You should not yet. She looked up. Dominic's voice remained calm. Trust is not a door someone kicks open. It is built. You can stay tonight because you need a roof. Tomorrow you decide what you want from me, if anything. Maya pressed her lips together. And if I want nothing, then Marco drives you wherever you choose and no one follows you. The answer scared her more than pressure would have. Freedom always did. She carried the tea to the window. Chicago spread beneath her in glittering lines, cold and endless. Somewhere out there, the Langford Hotel was still glowing. Blair was probably crying in some suite while Evelyn soothed her and Charles called lawyers. Guests were telling the story already. Some would make Maya the villain. Some would make Dominic the scandal. Few would tell the truth without bending it. Maya looked at her reflection in the glass. I thought if I made the cake perfect enough, they would have to see me. Dominic stood several feet behind her. And did they know? The word broke at the edges. Dominic did not move closer. Then stopped making offerings to people who only know how to take. Maya closed her eyes. She wanted to hate him for saying it so easily. Instead, she hated that he was right. That night, she did not sleep much. The guest suite was too quiet. The bed was too soft. The door locked, but her body did not believe it. Every time the building creaked or the heat clicked on, she opened her eyes and expected Evelyn's voice. Blair's text Charles's command. At 4 a.m., she sat up and checked her phone. 17 missed calls. Blair, Mom, Dad. Unknown numbers. Dozens of messages. You embarrassed us. Call me immediately. Your father is furious. Do you understand what you have done? Dominic Vale is using you. You looked unstable. Do not make this worse. Come home and we can talk. The last one was from Charles. We will discuss terms. Maya stared at that message until her vision blurred. Terms, not love, not worry, not apology, terms. She blocked his number, then unblocked it, then blocked it again. Her thumb hovered over Blair's name. She remembered her sister's mouth forming the word don't across the ballroom. Blocked. Her mother took longer. Maya's finger trembled. Evelyn had not thrown the stone, but she had decorated the hand that did. Blocked. Maya set the phone face down and sat in the dark, breathing as if she had run for miles. By morning, she found Dominic already awake at the kitchen island, reading something on a tablet. He wore a white shirt now open at the collar and looked like the kind of man who had slept because the world knew better than to disturb him. Maya envied that. He glanced up. Coffee. Yes. How strong enough to make a decision I might regret. He poured it black and slid it across the counter. Then you will want two. She took the mug. For a few minutes they drank in silence. Then Dominic placed a folder on the island. Maya stiffened. What is that, options? I hate that word from rich men. Fair. He opened the folder and turned it toward her. No flourish, no pressure. Inside were printed listings, legal contacts, temporary housing options, and one page with photographs of a vacant storefront in Fulton Market. Maya stared at the building. Tall front windows, old brick, narrow but beautiful. A faded sign from a closed flower shop still hung above the door. Her heartbeat changed. Dominic noticed. Of course he did. What is this A space that has been empty for 11 months? Why are you showing me because you are not homeless? You are between locked doors. Maya lifted her gaze. Do not make that sound poetic. It was practical. No, it was poetic. Annoyingly. His expression almost softened. She looked back at the photo. I cannot afford this. I know. Then why are you showing it to me? Because I can. The warmth drained from her face. Dominic saw it happen. Maya closed the folder. No, Maya, no. I am not leaving one controlling man to stand under another one's name. I did not offer my name. You offered money. With men like you, that is usually the same thing. Dominic leaned back slightly. For the first time, something like respect flashed in his eyes. Good. Maya frowned. Good, I wanted to know if you would say it. That is manipulative. That is cautious. That is the same thing if you dress it in a better suit. His mouth curved. Maybe. She pushed the folder toward him. I will not be your charity. I do not respect charity. That is not reassuring. I respect talent. I invest in talent. I write terms, hire lawyers, calculate risk, and expect returns. Maya went quiet. Dominic tapped the folder once. You choose your lawyer. The lease is in your business name. You own the brand. You decide menu, staff, design, suppliers. I invest capital for a minority stake, silent unless you ask otherwise. If you want to buy me out later, the agreement includes that path. Maya stared at him. You already thought this through. Yes. When? After I tasted the pistachio honey cake. She did not know what to do with that. The room seemed to tilt again, but differently this time. Not from humiliation. From possibility. You thought about investing in me before the wedding. I thought about it before you had a reason to run. Maya looked at the folder. The storefront windows seemed to look back. Why Dominic's eyes moved to the photograph of his mother on the wall. My mother baked in secret. Maya waited. His voice lowered. My father thought anything that made her happy was a threat. She wrote recipes on scraps of paper and hid them in coffee tins. After she died, people spoke about him for 3 days. Power, legacy, respect. No one said her name unless they were asking who would cook for the funeral. Maya's throat tightened. Dominic looked back at her. When you made that cake for her birthday, you gave a woman you never met more attention than her own husband gave her in 20 years. He paused. So when I see someone trying to bury your name under theirs, I take it personally. Maya looked away first, not because she was unmoved, because she was. The storefront in Fulton Market smelled of dust-cold brick and old flowers. Dominic took her there that afternoon in a different car without the full security parade. Marco still followed at a distance. Maya noticed. Dominic noticed her noticing and said nothing. The street outside was busy with restaurants, studios, coffee shops, and people who looked like they knew exactly where they were going. The vacant space sat between a wine bar and a design showroom. Its windows were cloudy. The lock stuck before Dominic got it open. Inside, the floor creaked under Maya's borrowed shoes. The ceiling was high. Exposed brick ran along one wall. Sunlight fell through the front windows in pale rectangles. The back room was rough with pipes showing and old tile cracked near the drain. It needed work. Serious work. Expensive work. Maya walked slowly through the space. The dust did not bother her. She saw the counter first. Long marble, maybe cream-colored, not too polished. A glass case beneath warm light. Small cakes lined like jewelry. A consultation table near the window. Sugar flowers displayed under glass domes. Shelves with boxes tied in black ribbon. In the back ovens, mixers, steel tables, storage a sink deep enough to handle real production. She saw herself standing there in an apron with her name on it. The vision hurt. Dominic stayed near the door. What would you call it? Maya touched the brick wall. I do not know. Yes, you do. She closed her eyes. For years she had saved names in a document. Sweet things, pretty things, safe things. Nothing with Bennett in it, nothing with Maya. Her own name had always felt too exposed, like placing her throat beneath a blade. But after the wedding, anonymity tasted bitter. She opened her eyes. Maya Bennett Cake Studio. Dominic nodded once. As it should be. She turned to him. If I do this, you do not get to use me to polish your reputation. No. You do not send men to scare people who leave bad reviews. No. You do not make decisions without me. No. You do not call me ungrateful when I disagree with you. Something dark moved through his eyes at that. No. Maya held his gaze. And if I say stop, I stop. The answer came too fast to be theater. She believed it just enough to be afraid. They spent the next hour walking the space with a contractor named Luis, a woman named Dana who specialized in restaurant permits, and a commercial kitchen consultant who spoke quickly and carried 3 measuring tapes. Maya asked questions until her head spun. Ventilation, plumbing, grease traps, display refrigeration, electrical load, accessible restroom, food license, insurance, sign permits, trash pickup. The words felt heavy but not impossible. They felt like bricks. Hard, specific, stackable. For once the future was not a fog. It was a list she could attack with a pen. When one contractor turned to Dominic and said, "You want the oven line over here?" Maya cleared her throat. Dominic did not answer. The contractor looked confused. Maya stepped forward. The oven line goes against the back wall. I need the cooling racks close to the center table, not blocking the sink. and I want the finishing station near natural light." The contractor blinked. Dominic looked at him. "She is the client." The man flushed. "Right. Sorry, Miss Bennett. Miss Bennett, not Blair's sister, not Charles's difficult daughter. The client." Maya looked down at her notebook before anyone could see her face. Over the next 2 weeks, her life became noise dust, coffee, and decisions. Dominic moved her into a short-term apartment 2 blocks from the future bakery. She tried to refuse until she saw the lease was in her name, and paid through the business investment account her lawyer reviewed. Her lawyer, a sharp woman named Alana Reed, had been chosen by Maya after 3 interviews. Dominic did not sit in those meetings. He paid the invoices and stayed away. That made him more dangerous in a different way. He listened. Maya was not used to that. She spent mornings meeting contractors and afternoons testing recipes in a rented commercial kitchen. At night, she built spreadsheets at a wobbly table in the temporary apartment while snow pressed against the windows. Opening budget, ingredient cost, projected revenue, labor, packaging, equipment, rent, emergency fund. She hated the numbers at first. They felt like Charles's world, cold and sharp and eager to prove her small. Then Alana said, "Numbers are not your enemy. They tell you where your choices have legs." So Maya learned. She calculated the real cost of a cake. Not just flour and butter, but time, skill, electricity, delivery boxes, ribbons, taxes, broken flowers, failed batches, and the years it took to become good enough to make something look effortless. For the first time, she saw the truth in black and white. She had been undercharging because part of her still believed she should be grateful anyone wanted her work. That realization made her sit very still. Then she raised every price. Blair would have called it arrogance. Jules Parker called it breakfast. Jules appeared on a Tuesday morning with 2 coffees, a red scarf, and the kind of blunt energy that made rooms behave. She had worked at the Wicker Park Cafe where Maya sold cakes, and had once threatened to pour cold brew on a man who asked if Maya's desserts were made by someone prettier. Now she stood in the unfinished Fulton Market space, looking at the open walls and exposed wiring. So Jules said this is either a bakery or the first act of a crime documentary. Maya laughed so suddenly she almost dropped her clipboard. Dominic, standing near the door with Marco, looked up. Jules noticed him. "And there is the crime documentary." Maya covered her mouth. Dominic did not smile, but Marco did, a little. Jules walked the space like she owned at least half of it. "You need someone at front of house who can talk to rich people without letting them feel superior." Maya raised an eyebrow. "Is that you, obviously? I cannot afford you yet." Jules sipped her coffee. "Pay me enough to cover rent and feed me broken cake scraps. We will revisit when you become famous and unbearable." Maya looked at her friend, then at the raw space, then at the sign permit form in her hand. "You would really come work here?" Jules's expression softened. "Maya, I have watched people buy your cakes, take 1 bite, and stand there like they just remembered they had feelings. Yes, I would really come work here." Something in Maya loosened. She had Dominic's money, Alana's legal help, contractors and plans and permits. But Jules was the first person who came because she believed in the bakery before it looked like one. That mattered more than Maya could say. The family did not disappear. They changed tactics. Evelyn called from new numbers and left voicemails in a voice polished by panic. "Darling, please call me. This has become so public. Your father is beside himself. Blair has barely left the house. We all said things we regret, but families move on. That is what healthy people do." Maya listened once, then deleted it. "Blair sent messages through cousins. She is being manipulated. Dominic Vale is dangerous. She has always been unstable. Do not encourage this." Charles sent a letter through an attorney claiming Maya had taken proprietary family information by using the Bennett name in connection with her business. Alana read it, laughed without smiling, and drafted a response so sharp Maya almost framed it. Dominic did not ask to see the letter until Maya offered. When he finished reading, his jaw set. "He is trying to frighten you with paper." Maya took the letter back. It worked for about 20 minutes. "And now I have a lawyer who scares me more than he does." Dominic's expression eased. Good. Still, there were nights when confidence left her. One night, after a supplier delayed an order and a health inspector rescheduled at the last minute, Maya sat on the unfinished bakery floor surrounded by paint samples and cried into her knees. Not pretty crying. Angry, tired, humiliating crying. Dominic found her there because Marco had called him after Jules refused to leave Maya alone, but also refused to call it a crisis. He sat on the floor beside her without asking. His suit probably cost more than the refrigerator unit being installed in the back. He did not seem to care. Maya wiped her face with her sleeve. "Do not look at me. I am looking at the paint samples. You are lying." "Yes." She gave a broken laugh. Dominic rested his forearms on his knees. "What happened?" "Everything is expensive. The oven needs a part. The permit office lost a form. The menu is too big. The menu is too small. I cannot decide whether the boxes should be cream or black. Jules says black looks expensive. I think cream looks warmer. I burned 3 batches of sponge today because the rental oven has hot spots, and then I remembered my father saying a bakery is a hobby with rent. And for about 5 minutes I thought maybe he was right." Dominic was quiet. Maya looked at him through wet lashes. "If you say he is not right, I will not believe you. Then I will say something else." She waited. "You are allowed to be bad at parts of something new." That made her cry harder. He did not touch her. The space smelled of sawdust and primer. Snow tapped against the covered front window. Somewhere in the back, a pipe clicked. Maya said, "I hate that I still want them to be sorry." Dominic's voice lowered. "Wanting love from people who trained you to beg for it does not make you weak." She looked at him then. Really looked. The city called him ruthless, dangerous, a man with blood under his money and secrets in every room. Maybe all of that was true. But in that moment, sitting on a dusty bakery floor in an expensive suit, he did not look like a man trying to own her. He looked like a man who recognized the shape of a wound. "Why do you always know what that feels like?" she asked. His face closed slightly. "Because my house had rules too." "What kind?" "The kind where quiet kept people alive." Maya stopped breathing for half a second. Dominic stood before she could ask more. "The black boxes look expensive," he said. "The cream boxes look like you." She stared at him. That was almost helpful. "I will try not to make a habit of it." He left her with the paint samples and the choice. She chose cream boxes with thin black ribbon. 3 days later, the first article appeared. It was not in a major paper, just a Chicago food gossip blog with too much confidence and not enough facts. "Mafia money behind Fulton Market Cake Studio." The headline sat on Maya's phone like a stain. The article described her as Dominic Vale's rumored girlfriend. It called the bakery a luxury vanity project. It mentioned the wedding scandal without naming Blair directly, but the meaning was clear. Poor, humiliated sister rescued by dangerous man. Pretty little bakery funded by dirty money. Talent optional. Maya read it in the back room while Jules unpacked napkins nearby. Her face went hot, then cold. Jules looked over. "Who do I need to ruin?" Maya handed her the phone. Jules read the headline. "Oh, absolutely not." Maya took the phone back and walked outside without a coat. Dominic arrived 20 minutes later. Not because she called him. Because Marco had told him. That made her angrier. He stepped out of the car, his expression already dark. Maya stood on the sidewalk in front of the half-finished bakery, snow catching in her hair. "This is what I was afraid of." Dominic stopped a few feet away. "The article is garbage." "No, it is poison. There is a difference. I can handle it." Maya's eyes flashed. "That is the problem." He went still. She held up the phone. "People will not taste the cake. They will taste your name. They will walk in here looking for proof that I am just some broken girl you picked up and paid for." Dominic's voice stayed even. "Then we make them hungry enough to forget mine." "No," Maya said. "I make them hungry enough." The air between them changed. His gaze sharpened, but not with anger. With a tension. "You are right." Maya blinked. She had expected argument, strategy, a command disguised as advice. Dominic put his hands into his coat pockets. "You make them hungry enough." The cold bit at her cheeks. She hated that his agreement made her want to cry. "I need you to stop arriving like a storm every time something happens. Storms are useful, not when I am trying to build a house." He absorbed that, then nodded once. "I will wait until you call. And if Marco calls you, I will tell Marco to stop calling unless there is blood or fire. Actual fire. Actual fire. Maya breathed out. Thank you. Dominic looked at the unfinished sign above the door, still covered in paper. You do not need my shadow to look larger, Maya. She swallowed. No, I do not. But if someone tries to make you smaller again, I will have opinions. Despite herself, she smiled. I am sure your opinions have court records. Some. He left after that. He actually left. Maya stood on the sidewalk for a long moment after his car pulled away, watching the red taillights disappear into traffic. Jules opened the bakery door behind her. Did you just set boundaries with the scariest man in Chicago? Maya turned. I think so. Hot Jules. What growth can be hot? The soft opening took place on a Thursday evening with no press, no influencers, and no Bennetts. Maya invited local business owners, the florist from 2 doors down, Luis the contractor, Dana from Permits Alana, a couple from the neighborhood, 2 nurses who had once ordered cupcakes from the cafe, and the hotel pastry woman who had told Maya the cake was hers, no matter what Blair said. Jules handled the front with a black dress, red lipstick, and the authority of someone who had already judged everyone and found most of them acceptable. The bakery was not fully finished, but it was alive. Warm lights glowed against cream walls. The exposed brick had been cleaned. The glass case held small cakes like little promises: chocolate orange, pear champagne, pistachio honey, lemon thyme, brown butter vanilla. Each label was written in Maya's hand. Maya stood behind the counter, palms damp. No ballroom, no stolen credit, no sister waiting to smile over her work, just people and cake. The first guest to taste the pear champagne cake was an older man named Mr. Alvarez, who owned a frame shop nearby. He took one bite and went silent. Maya's stomach dropped. Then he closed his eyes. My wife used to make pears with vanilla when the kids were small, he said quietly. I have not thought about that kitchen in years. Maya could not speak for a moment. Jules leaned toward him. That means you have to buy too. He laughed, wiping one eye with the back of his hand. Across the room, the florist tasted the pistachio honey cake and immediately asked for tasting boxes for 3 brides. The nurses bought slices to take back for their night shift. Luis declared the chocolate orange cake dangerous and took 4 pieces home. Then a young woman near the display case asked, Who made all of this? Maya felt the old reflex rise, the urge to lower her eyes, to soften the answer, to make herself small enough that no one would accuse her of wanting attention. Jules pointed at her with serving tongs. She did. Say her name. It is good for the economy. The woman smiled. Maya Bennett. Maya heard her name in the warm bakery light. No lie attached, no apology after it, just her name and the work that belonged to it. Yes, Maya said, her voice steady. I made it. Outside, snow drifted against the front windows. Inside, people kept eating, laughing, asking questions, placing orders, saying her name like it was easy. Dominic did not come in that night, but near closing, Maya found a small envelope slipped beneath the back door. Inside was a single receipt. 1 chocolate orange cake paid in full. Pickup name D. Vale. Under it, written in black ink, were 5 words. I waited until you called. Maya stood in the quiet back room holding the receipt between both hands. She did not call him. Not yet. She walked to the front instead, where Jules was wiping down the counter and humming off key. The display case was nearly empty. Cream boxes lined the shelf tied with black ribbon. The air smelled of sugar coffee and something new enough to frighten her. Hope, maybe. Maya turned the lock on the front door and looked up at the temporary paper sign taped inside the window. Maya Bennett Cake Studio. The letters were simple. Black ink on white paper, nothing permanent yet. But when the streetlight hit the glass, her name reflected back at her over the city beyond. For the first time, it did not look like a question. The paper sign in the window stayed there for 3 more days, curling slightly at the corners from the heat inside the bakery. Maya kept meaning to replace it. A real sign had been ordered. Black letters on brushed brass, simple and clean, the kind of sign that did not beg for attention because it knew it belonged there. But the company needed another week, and Maya found herself strangely attached to the temporary one. Maya Bennett Cake Studio. She had written it herself with a marker on thick white paper standing on a chair while Jules judged the spacing from the sidewalk. Higher, Jules had called through the glass. Maya had lifted it an inch. Too high. Now it looks desperate. Jules. What branding matters? Now the paper sign watched over the bakery through the first official week of business. It watched customers step in from the snow, stamping their boots on the mat. It watched Maya fill cream boxes with slices of chocolate orange cake and pear champagne cake. It watched Jules charm threaten and upsell with equal skill. By Wednesday, the display case sold out before 3. By Thursday, Maya had 5 wedding tasting requests. By Friday, she was running on coffee adrenaline and the kind of happiness that scared her because it felt breakable. She was tying ribbon around a box when the bell above the door rang. Jules looked up first. The smile fell from her face. Maya felt it before she turned. Blair Bennett stood inside the bakery wearing a cream wool coat, dark sunglasses, and the expression of a woman who had walked into enemy territory and intended to call it charity. The room changed, not loudly. Customers still murmured near the case. The espresso machine hissed. Snow still moved past the windows. But Maya's body knew her sister's presence before her mind formed the thought. Blair removed her sunglasses slowly. Her eyes moved over the bakery, the warm lights, the brick wall, the glass case nearly empty from real customers buying real cake, the consultation table by the window, the cream boxes stacked behind the counter with black ribbon waiting to be tied. For a second, Blair looked confused. The bakery was supposed to be small, embarrassing. A temporary rebellion funded by a dangerous man and fueled by wounded pride. It was not. It was beautiful. That bothered her. Cute, Blair said. Jules leaned beside Maya and whispered, "There goes the temperature." Maya wiped her hands on her apron and stepped from behind the counter. "What do you want, Blair?" Blair's gaze flicked toward the customers. "Can we speak privately?" "No." The word came out before Maya had time to polish it. Blair blinked. Maya felt the shock of it pass between them. Blair was used to Maya resisting silently if she resisted at all. She was not used to a refusal that stood on its own 2 feet. Blair lifted her chin. "Fine. Mom wants you at dinner Sunday." Maya almost laughed. "Mom can call the number I did not block." A flush rose along Blair's neck. "You are acting like a child." Jules made a soft sound behind the counter. Maya did not look back. If she did, she might smile. Blair stepped closer, lowering her voice. "Dad says if you apologize publicly, he will consider helping with the apartment situation." "The apartment situation?" "You know what I mean. You mean him evicting me." Several customers went quiet. Blair's mouth tightened. "Maya." "No, say it clearly." Blair glanced toward the tables. "This is not appropriate. You walked into my business to offer me conditions for forgiveness I did not ask for." Blair's eyes sharpened. "Your business." Maya held her gaze. "Yes." The word filled the space between them like a locked door. Blair looked at the nearly empty display case. "People are curious right now. That does not mean they respect you." Maya felt the old wound open, familiar, and deep. For most of her life, Blair had known exactly where to press. Never hard enough to look cruel in public, just enough to make Maya question the ground beneath her. But the bakery smelled of butter and vanilla. Jules stood behind her. Customers were listening. Maya's name was on the window, even if only in marker. She did not lower her eyes. "Is that why you came to tell me strangers are lying when they enjoy my work?" Blair's face shifted. For one breath, something tired appeared beneath the polish. Fear, maybe. Or envy. Or the exhaustion of being admired for things she had not earned. Then it vanished. "You think this little shop makes you better than us?" Maya shook her head. "No, it makes me separate from you." Blair's lips parted. That word hit harder than better. Better still belonged to the old game. Better meant Maya was trying to win inside the Bennett family rules. Separate meant she had left the board. A customer near the window pretended to study a menu card. Another woman watched openly. Blair put her sunglasses back on with unsteady hands. "You have no idea what you are doing." Maya opened the door for her. "Then you should not be standing this close to the experiment." Blair walked out without another word. The bell rang behind her. Silence held for 1 second. Then Jules said, "I want that line embroidered on a pillow." A laugh moved through the room, small but real. Maya turned back to the counter. Her hands shook only a little as she tied the next ribbon. By closing time, the bakery looked like it had survived a party and a storm. Crumbs near the register, a smear of chocolate on the counter, Empty trays in the display case. A coffee ring on the consultation table where a bride had cried because the honey pistachio cake tasted like her grandmother's kitchen. Jules locked the front door and leaned against it. Today was insane. Maya untied her apron. Good insane or lawsuit insane, both, but profitable. Maya smiled. That word still felt new. Profitable. Not lucky, not cute, not generous exposure. Profitable. Jules grabbed her coat. You coming? I need my notebook from the back and then I'll head out. Jules narrowed her eyes. 10 minutes. Yes, Mom. If you call me Mom again, I am adding emotional damages to payroll. Maya laughed as Jules left through the front door, waving 2 fingers over her shoulder. The bakery settled into quiet. Maya walked to the back room, found her notebook beneath a stack of invoices, and checked tomorrow's prep list. Butter, pears, cake boards, ribbon, email the florist. Confirm the tasting at noon. Call Dana about the final sign inspection. The ordinary tasks calmed her. She was closing the notebook when a sound split the night. Glass exploded. Maya froze. The crash echoed through the bakery, bright and violent. For 1 second, her mind refused to understand it. Then cold air rushed in from the front. She ran toward the sound. The front window was shattered. Glass covered the floor like ice. A brick had skidded across the tile and stopped against the base of the display case. Around it, tied with black string, was a folded piece of paper. Maya stood in the dark bakery with one hand pressed to her throat. Outside, the sidewalk was empty. A car turned the corner, too fast, tires spitting slush. She did not move until her breath returned. Then she stepped carefully through the glass and picked up the paper. The words were written in thick black marker. Vale's pet. Bennett shame. Go home. For a moment she was back in the Langford hallway with the envelope in her hand. Her knees almost gave. Not because of the broken window. Not because of the insult. Because Go Home still knew where to hit. Home had been a place where she apologized for taking up space. Home had been a table where no one asked about her life unless they could correct it. Home had been Blair's shine, Charles's judgment, Evelyn's soft betrayal, and still some wounded part of Maya heard the words and wondered if obedience would make the fear stop. Her phone rang. Jules. Maya answered, but her voice came out wrong. Someone broke the window. Jules was silent for half a breath. Are you hurt? No. Do not move. I am turning around. Maya looked at the brick. Then another call came through. Dominic. She stared at his name. Marco must have called. Or the security alarm had gone to his company. Or maybe Dominic Vale simply felt violence near things he cared about. Maya answered. I'm fine. His voice was quiet enough to frighten her. Where are you standing in the front? Move away from the glass. I said I'm fine. Maya. She closed her eyes. The way he said her name was not a command exactly, but it carried the weight of one. She stepped back. Happy? No. The call ended. He arrived before the police. A black car slid to the curb outside the shattered window, followed by another. Dominic stepped out in a dark coat, Marco beside him. His face was calm from a distance. Up close, Maya saw the violence under the calm, controlled and waiting. He came through the broken doorway and stopped when he saw the brick. Marco picked up the note with gloved hands. Dominic read it once. The room seemed to lose temperature. Who did this? He asked. Maya crossed her arms tightly. I do not know. His eyes moved to the street. Marco was already speaking into his phone. Dominic's jaw flexed. Camera's front camera caught a dark sedan, Marco said. Plate obscured. I am pulling nearby feeds. Dominic nodded. Maya heard it then. Not in the words, in the rhythm, the machinery beginning. Men calling men, favors waking up, doors opening in places where police reports did not reach. She stepped in front of him. No. Dominic looked at her. No threats. No one disappears. No one gets dragged into an alley. No midnight lesson. His eyes darkened. You think I am that predictable? Yes. Marco looked away. Dominic did not. Maya's voice shook, but she kept going. We call the police. We give them the footage. We file the insurance claim. We hire a legitimate security company. We replace the window. Clean. Clean does not always work. Then we make it work. Maya. This is my business, Dominic. Not your war. The words struck him. She saw it. A flash in his eyes, not anger exactly. Pain maybe. or the memory of every time he had believed protection meant control because no one had taught him the difference. The police sirens approached in the distance. Dominic looked at the shattered glass, then at her. Finally, he took out his phone. Marco, contact Halstead Security. Legitimate contract. Visible cameras. Night monitoring. No one from our side handles the street. Marco nodded. Maya exhaled. Dominic looked at her again. Police report. Insurance. Glass repair. I will stand outside. You do not have to leave. I know. He walked out anyway. Not because he was angry. Because she had drawn a line and he was giving it space. That almost hurt worse. Jules arrived in a rideshare coat, flying open hair wild from the wind. She saw the window and gasped. Then she saw Maya and pulled her into a hug so fierce Maya's ribs protested. You're shaking. I'm cold. You're lying. Yes. The police came. The questions came. The photographs. The report. The looks that lingered on Dominic outside the broken window. The officer asking if Maya had enemies, as if enemies were always people with names and not families, headlines, whispers, and men who thought women were easiest to scare in the dark. By the time the temporary board covered the window, it was nearly 2 a.m. Jules refused to leave until Maya did. Dominic waited across the street, leaning against his car, speaking to no one. Maya stepped outside with the brick wrapped in an evidence bag still vivid in her mind. Jules touched her arm. You sure you are okay going with him? Maya looked at Dominic. He had not come back inside after she told him where the boundary was. I am. Jules nodded. Text me when you get in. And if he gets weird, throw something expensive. I heard that, Dominic said from across the sidewalk. Good, Jules called back. Fear keeps men humble. Dominic opened the car door for Maya. Inside, silence waited. For several blocks, neither of them spoke. The city moved around them in streaks of wet light. Maya held her hands together in her lap. Glass dust glittered on the hem of her coat. Finally, Dominic said, You were right. Maya looked at him. That sounded painful. It was. She almost smiled, but she was too tired. His gaze stayed forward. When I saw the note, I wanted to handle it the way I know how. I know. That does not make it right. No. His hands tightened once on his knee. I have spent most of my life believing that if I can make people afraid enough, the people behind me can sleep. Maya's throat softened. And can they? Dominic looked out at the city. For a while. The car turned toward the river. Maya said, I do not want to sleep behind fear. I know that now. The honesty in his voice made the air feel fragile. They went not to the penthouse, but back to the bakery. Maya had asked. Dominic had not argued. The temporary board covered the front window like a bruise. The alarm company had already sent a night guard. Jules had left a thermos of coffee inside the back room with a note that said, Drink this or I haunt you. Maya stood in the center of the bakery looking at the boarded window. Dominic stood near the counter. This place still smells like sugar, he said. Maya glanced at him. You sound surprised. Violence usually ruins a room. Not this one. She did not know where the certainty came from until she said it. Dominic looked at her as if he heard the shift too. Maya picked up a broom and began sweeping the last bits of glass from beneath the display case. Dominic removed his coat and took the dustpan. She paused. You know how to use that. My reputation is suffering tonight. They worked quietly. Sweep. Gather. Toss. Sweep again. The sound was small and steady. The board rattled when the wind hit it. The bakery lights hummed overhead. After a while, Dominic leaned the dustpan against the wall. My father broke things when he wanted the room to remember him. Maya stopped sweeping. Dominic looked at the boarded window, not at her. He was not loud at first. That was the worst part. He could sit through dinner smiling, ask about school, compliment my mother's dress. Then later, if the soup was cold or she laughed at the wrong person's joke, a glass would hit the wall beside her head. The broom handle pressed into Maya's palm. My sister Sophia used to hide under the kitchen table. I would sit with her and count the tiles until it was over. His voice stayed even, but Maya heard the boy beneath it. What happened to Sophia? Dominic's face closed around the name. She died when she was 17. Maya felt the room tilt. I'm sorry. She ran from one violent man and found another. I was too late to understand that not every rescue is freedom. Maya did not move. The words settled between them heavy and alive. Dominic looked at her then. That is why I stopped outside tonight. Not because I wanted to, because when you said this was your business, I heard what I needed to hear. Maya set the broom against the counter. And what was that? That if I step in front of every danger, you disappear behind me. Her eyes burned. The bakery seemed impossibly quiet. Dominic took one step closer, then stopped. I do not know how to love gently. I know how to guard. I know how to remove threats. I know how to make rooms afraid to breathe. But I am learning that you do not need another man deciding what your safety costs. Maya looked at his hands. Strong, still empty. You scare me sometimes, she said. He nodded. I should. That was not an invitation to agree. It was the truth. She let out a shaky breath. You also make me feel seen, and that scares me more. His expression changed then, not soft exactly, but open in a way she had never seen before. Maya, no. Let me say it before I lose it. He waited. I spent my whole life thinking love was something I had to earn quietly. If I made the right cake, wore the ugly dress, said the easy thing, swallowed the hurt, maybe someone would finally look at me and decide I was worth keeping. Her voice thinned. And then you looked. Really looked. But you come with shadows, Dominic, big ones, and I cannot trade one cage for another just because this one has better locks. He closed his eyes for a brief second. When he opened them, his voice was low. I do not want you in a cage. Then do not build one out of protection. The board over the window rattled again in the wind. Dominic nodded once. Tell me the rules. Maya's heart kicked. What? Tell me the rules and I follow them. She searched his face. He meant it. Do not send people after anyone who hurts me unless I ask for help. Done. Do not use my business for your business. Done. Do not hide threats because you think I cannot handle them. His jaw tightened, but he said done. Do not make decisions and call them gifts. A breath moved through him. Done. And do not ever ask me to be grateful for something that cost me my voice. Dominic's eyes held hers. Never. The word entered the room like a vow, though neither of them called it that. Maya stepped closer. Not all the way, just enough. Dominic did not move to meet her. He let the space remain hers to close. For the first time, that restraint felt more intimate than touch. The next morning, the broken window became the best advertisement the bakery had never asked for. Someone posted a photo of the boarded storefront online with the caption, "They tried to scare her." She opened anyway. By noon, a line had formed. Jules stood at the register with her hair pinned up and murder in her eyes. We are selling cake and resilience today, she announced to the first group. Both are limited. Maya almost told her not to say that. Then a woman at the front of the line laughed and ordered 6 slices. The board stayed over the window, but someone tucked flowers into the gap near the frame. Then someone else added a note. Your cake made my mother smile. Then another. Do not go home. Stay here. By closing, the board had become a wall of messages. Maya stood before it, reading each one slowly. Dominic did not come inside, but across the street she saw his car for 10 minutes. Then it left. She did not know whether to be annoyed or touched. She was both. 2 days later, Charles Bennett requested a meeting. Not directly, never directly. His attorney emailed Alana. The language was stiff and controlled. Mr. Bennett wished to resolve ongoing personal and reputational matters. A family dinner was proposed as a private setting. Alana called it a trap. Jules called it a crime scene with napkins. Dominic said nothing at first. Maya sat in the bakery office with the email open on her laptop. I think I should go. Jules nearly dropped her coffee. Absolutely not. Alana's voice on speaker was calm. You are not legally required to engage. Dominic stood by the window, hands in his pockets. Maya looked at the email. I know. Jules crossed her arms. Then why Maya read the words again. Reputational matters. Resolve. Private setting. Because he still thought he could summon her. Because Evelyn still thought a dining table could soften what a ballroom had exposed. Because Blair still thought silence could be negotiated back into place. Maya closed the laptop. Because I do not want the last time I sat at that table to be as the daughter waiting to be dismissed. Dominic looked at her then. Alana said, if you go, you bring documents. Boundary letter harassment record business ownership attorney contact. You say little. You leave when you choose. Jewel pointed at the phone. I like scary lawyer lady. I am fond of you too, Alana said dryly. Maya turned to Dominic. You cannot come in. His expression did not change. No, I mean it. I heard you. You can wait outside if you want, but this is mine. Dominic's eyes held hers. Yes, it is. The Bennett townhouse looked exactly the same. That was the cruelest part. The iron gate, the glowing windows, the polished steps, the wreath on the door, white ribbon and silver bells. It looked like a home families posed in front of for holiday cards. It looked warm from the street. Maya sat in Dominic's car at the curb, hands resting on a folder in her lap. Dominic was beside her, but not touching her. You do not have to prove anything in there, he said. I know. Knowing and believing are different things. Maya turned to him. Are you trying to comfort me badly? She smiled despite herself. It's working a little. His gaze dropped to her mouth, then returned to her eyes. If you call, I come in. I know. If you do not call, I stay here. I know. She opened the car door before she could change her mind. Cold air rushed in. Dominic's voice followed her. Maya. She looked back. He did not tell her to be careful. He did not tell her to be strong. He said, Take your time leaving. Her chest tightened. She nodded and walked up the steps. Evelyn opened the door. For a second, mother and daughter looked at each other without performance. Evelyn seemed smaller. Her hair was perfect, her pearls in place, her dress elegant, but the wedding had done something to her face. The smoothness had cracked around the eyes. Maya, she said. Mom. Evelyn reached as if to hug her. Maya did not move forward. The hand fell. In the dining room, Charles sat at the head of the table. Of course he did. Blair sat to his right, pale and rigid. Preston was not there. Maya noticed that immediately. Charles gestured to the chair across from Blair. Sit down. Maya remained standing. I am not staying for dinner. Evelyn's smile fluttered. Sweetheart, we had cook make your favorite. Maya looked at the table. Roasted chicken, pear salad, buttered rolls, wine breathing in crystal. Her favorite had been tomato soup and grilled cheese in her grandmother's kitchen, but no one here remembered that. I am here to speak, Maya said. Then I am leaving. Charles leaned back. You have become very theatrical. Maya placed the folder on the table. No, theatrical was giving me an eviction notice at a wedding. This is organized. Blair looked down. Evelyn whispered Maya. Charles opened the folder with 2 fingers as if it might stain him. Inside were printed copies of the bakery ownership documents, a letter from Alana, the police report from the broken window screenshots of messages from Blair and Evelyn, and a formal notice that any future contact regarding business property reputation or harassment should go through Maya's attorney. Charles read the first page. His face hardened. You brought legal documents to a family dinner. You brought an eviction notice to Blair's wedding. Blair flinched. Maya saw it. Charles looked up. You think Vale makes you powerful? No. Do not lie to yourself. Without him, you would be in that apartment crying over a hobby. Maya felt the old sting. It came, but it did not own her. Without him, I still would have made the cake you all lied about. Evelyn's eyes filled. We never meant for it to go this far. Maya turned to her. You watched it go this far. Her mother's mouth trembled. That is not fair. No, it is accurate. The room went silent. Blair's voice came softly. I was humiliated too. Maya looked at her sister. Blair's hands were clasped in her lap, knuckles white. Everyone looked at me like I was a fraud. You were. The word landed clean. Blair's eyes flashed. I was the bride. It was my wedding. For once, could something just be mine? Maya stared at her. Then she understood something that did not forgive Blair, but did explain the shape of her cruelty. Blair had spent her whole life at the center, but never at peace. Every spotlight came with instructions. Be prettier, marry better, smile wider, keep the family name polished, do not crack, do not fail. And because Blair could not escape the pedestal, she had made sure Maya stayed beneath it. Maya's voice softened, but only slightly. You had the wedding, the dress, the room, the cameras, Dad's pride, Mom's tears, Preston's name. You had all of it, Blair, and you still needed the one thing I made. Blair looked away. Maya continued. That is not hunger. That is emptiness. Evelyn covered her mouth. Charles stood. Enough. Maya turned back to him. There he was. The wall she had spent her life mistaking for a mountain. You will not speak to your sister that way in my house. Maya picked up the folder. Then it is a good thing I do not live here. His face darkened. You are making a mistake. I have made many. Leaving is not one of them. You think that bakery will last. You think people respect you. They are entertained by scandal. They are curious about Vale. When the novelty fades, so will they. Maya heard the words. She felt them strike. But behind them she also heard Mr. Alvarez talking about his wife's kitchen, the bride crying over pistachio honey cake, the notes tucked into the board over the broken window, Jules saying her name like it belonged on a building. Maya smiled faintly. You have no idea what people taste when they eat something made by someone who means it. Charles looked at her like he could not recognize the woman standing before him. Maybe he could not. Maybe she had never let him meet her. Evelyn stepped forward. Please do not leave like this. Maya looked at her mother. How should I leave? Evelyn had no answer. Maya nodded. That is what I thought. She walked toward the door. Blair spoke before she reached it. Maya. Maya stopped, but did not turn. Blair's voice was smaller now. Did you really make every flower by hand? The question was absurd. Late. Not enough. Still it opened something. Maya turned her head. Yes. Blair swallowed. They were beautiful. Maya looked at her sister for a long moment. Then she said, I know. Not thank you, not finally, just I know. She walked out. Dominic was waiting by the curb exactly where he said he would be. He stood beside the car in the falling snow hand's bare coat open at the throat, looking like a dark mark against the white street. He saw her face and straightened. Maya reached the sidewalk. I did it, she said. I know. You did not come in. You told me not to. Her breath trembled. Something inside her held tight for 28 years loosened one knot. She looked back at the Bennett house. The windows glowed warmly. The dining room light shone behind the curtains. Inside, they were probably still standing where she left them, trying to decide whether she had become cruel, unstable, corrupted, or simply unavailable. Maya turned back to Dominic. I kept waiting to feel guilty, and I feel sad. That is different. Yes, snow landed on his hair and melted there. Maya stepped closer. You listened to me. His eyes searched hers. I am trying. No, she said softly. You did. The street was quiet except for the whisper of snow and the distant hum of traffic from Lakeshore Drive. Dominic did not reach for her, so Maya reached for him. She took the lapel of his coat in her fingers, rose onto her toes, and kissed him. For a heartbeat, he did not move. Then his hand came to her waist, careful at first, as if touching her required permission even after she had given it. The kiss deepened slowly then, all at once. Heat under snow. Control giving way to want, not rescue, not repayment, not a bargain signed in the ruins of her old life. Choice. Maya pulled back first, breathing hard. Dominic rested his forehead near hers but did not trap her there. I won't be owned, she whispered. His voice was rough. Then do not belong to me. Her fingers tightened in his coat. Dominic, choose me, he said, every day or do not. But I will never ask you to shrink. The words moved through her like warmth returning to frozen hands. Behind her, the Bennett house stood bright and silent. In front of her, Dominic opened the car door. This time when Maya stepped inside, she did not feel like she was escaping. She felt like she was leaving. This time when Maya stepped inside Dominic's car, she did not feel like she was escaping. She felt like she was leaving. There was a difference, and the difference stayed with her long after the Bennett house disappeared behind snow and black glass. Escaping still carried the shape of the thing chasing you. Leaving belonged to the person walking away. Maya sat beside Dominic in the quiet warmth of the car, her lips still tingling from the kiss, her hands folded in her lap because she did not yet trust them not to reach for him again. Dominic seemed to understand. He did not touch her. He looked out at the winter street, his profile cut by passing light, and let the silence breathe. After a while, Maya said Blair asked if I made every flower by hand. Dominic glanced at her. What did you say? I said yes. And she said they were beautiful. Dominic's face stayed calm, but his eyes shifted. Did that feel good? Maya looked out the window. No. The answer surprised her as much as him. She thought it would have. For years she had imagined Blair seeing her, really seeing her, saying the words Maya had stored in her bones like a prayer. You are talented, you matter, I was wrong. But when the compliment came, it felt like a coin dropped into a well that had already gone dry. It felt late, Maya said. Dominic nodded once. Late things can still be true. I know. She turned the thought over slowly. Blair's compliment had been true. It had also been too small to rebuild anything. Maybe both could exist at the same time. Maya leaned her head against the seat and watched Chicago slide by. Restaurant windows glowed against the dark. Couples hurried through the snow, shoulders pressed together. A woman laughed under a red umbrella. A man carried flowers wrapped in brown paper. Life kept moving with cruel, beautiful indifference. Her phone buzzed once. Maya looked down. A message from an unknown number. It was Blair. I am sorry about the cake. Maya stared at the words. 4 words. No explanation. No excuse. No performance. Her thumb hovered over the screen. Dominic did not ask who it was. He did not look down. He let her have the moment unobserved. Maya locked the phone without answering. Not because she wanted to punish Blair. Because she wanted to hear her own breathing before she decided what forgiveness cost. The bakery reopened fully 3 days after the broken window was replaced. The new brass sign arrived the same morning. Maya stood on the sidewalk with Jules, both of them wrapped in coats, both holding paper cups of coffee, as 2 installers lifted the sign into place. Maya Bennett Cake Studio. Black letters on brushed brass. Clean, steady, permanent. Jules sniffed. Maya looked at her. Are you crying? No. The wind is attacking me. There is no wind. I said what I said. The installer tightened the final screw and stepped back. The morning sun struck the brass and Maya's name caught the light. For a moment she could not move. She remembered the paper sign curling at the edges, the ugly yellow dress, the ballroom where guests praised a cake with someone else's name on it, her father's envelope, Blair's mouth forming "don't" across the crowd. Then she looked at the sign again. No one had given her permission to put it there. That was why it mattered. Jules nudged her shoulder. Owner face, please. You are scaring the contractors with feelings. Maya laughed, wiping quickly at her cheek. The door opened behind them, and the first customer of the morning stepped inside. Then another. Then another. Business did not become easy. It became real. That was different, too. There were orders that went wrong. A cake board cracked 20 minutes before pickup. A supplier delivered the wrong cream. A bride changed her floral palette 4 times and cried during the final tasting because the shade of lavender reminded her of her ex. Jules handled that one by offering tea and threatening the color wheel under her breath. Maya learned to hire slowly. She hired a dishwasher named Renee who sang old soul music off-key. She hired an assistant baker named Theo who had steady hands and no patience for nonsense. She hired an intern from a community culinary program, a 19-year-old named Lila, who watched Maya as if sugar flowers were a form of magic. Dominic stayed on the edge of her life in a way that made him more present, not less. He came by after closing some nights with coffee and said nothing while she finished invoices. He sat at the consultation table and read reports while Maya tested recipes in the kitchen. He never corrected staff, never made decisions, never allowed his men to crowd the door. Sometimes he watched her work. That still made her nervous. Not because she feared judgment, because his attention felt like heat. One night while she shaped petals for a bridal order, she said without looking up, "You are staring." Yes, at least lie. I am bad at harmless lies. Maya glanced at him. You are bad at harmless anything. Dominic smiled into his coffee. There were still shadows. A man like Dominic Vale did not become harmless because he loved carefully. Sometimes calls pulled him away at midnight. Sometimes Marco appeared with a look that made Dominic's face close. Sometimes Maya saw blood on his knuckles and did not ask because the answer might force a decision neither of them was ready for. But he kept his promises to her. No hidden threats, no favors pressed into her business, no men sent after rumors, no decisions disguised as gifts. When danger came close to her door, he told her. When she said she needed space, he gave it. When she asked for the truth, he gave enough of it to hurt. That was how trust grew between them. not like a flame, like bread rising slowly in a warm room, quiet and alive. 3 months after the wedding scandal, an email arrived from the planning committee of the Chicago Winter Arts Gala. Maya read it twice before she understood it. Then she carried her laptop to the front counter where Jules was rearranging boxes. Jules. Jules looked up. Why do you look like you saw a ghost with a credit score? Maya turned the screen toward her. Jules read the email. Her mouth opened. Then she screamed. Maya grabbed the laptop. Do not scream near the register. The Art Institute wants you to create the centerpiece dessert for the gala. I know, the gala. As in donors, critics, museum board people, chefs, photographers, rich women with opinions that cost money. I know. Jules gripped the counter. If we faint, we do it in shifts. The order was enormous. Not just a cake, but a sculptural dessert installation for nearly 500 guests. It had to be beautiful, stable, transportable, and meaningful without becoming ridiculous. Maya said yes before fear could talk her out of it. The article came the next day. This one was not gossip. It was from a culinary culture site with good photos and careful poison. The headline read, Dominic Vale's favorite Bakerland's Winter Arts Gala centerpiece. Maya read the article standing alone in the kitchen. It did not call her untalented. That would have been easier. It praised her work in the same breath it questioned her access. It mentioned her connection to Dominic 3 times. It described her rise as sudden. It used the word mysterious twice. By the end, Maya felt the old cold spread behind her ribs. Jules found her staring at the mixer. Are we breaking something or baking something? Maya handed over the phone. Jules read quickly. I hate writers with cheekbones. You have not seen the writer. I can feel them. Maya took the phone back. For a moment she saw the ballroom again, people admiring her work while her name vanished under a prettier story. Then she looked around the kitchen. Theo was weighing flour. Renee was washing pans. Lila was practicing pedals at the corner table, tongue caught between her teeth in concentration. This was not a secret kitchen anymore. This was a room full of people who knew exactly who made what. Maya placed the phone face down. We are going to make something so good they have to invent a better lie. Jules smiled slowly. That is the most romantic thing you have ever said to Revenge. The design came to Maya after midnight. She was alone in the bakery, standing before a blank sketch page when a crack in the old brick wall caught her eye. Someone had filled it badly years ago, but the seam remained. Thin, uneven, stubborn. She touched it with her fingertips. Pressure did not always destroy. Sometimes it revealed where light could enter. She began to draw. 6 tiers. The base, dark and rough black cocoa espresso, burnt sugar shards of charcoal-tinted sugar glass. The second tier, warmer bitter chocolate with orange and clove. The third pear and vanilla. The fourth, honey and pistachio. The fifth, pale champagne cream. The top tier, white, not bridal white, but winter morning white. From the cracks, sugar flowers would bloom. Not perfect roses like Blair's wedding cake. Wild flowers. Small, determined, different shapes climbing upward through the dark toward the light. Jules came in early and found Maya asleep at the consultation table, pencil still in hand. She lifted the sketch. Oh, Jules whispered. Maya opened one eye. Too much no. It is exactly enough. Dominic saw the sketch later that evening. He stood beside Maya in the kitchen sleeves rolled, looking at the design while the ovens hummed behind them. What are you calling it? He asked. Maya dusted powdered sugar from her wrist. The visible things. Dominic's gaze moved from the sketch to her face. That sounds like a warning. It is. The corner of his mouth lifted, to whom Maya smiled. Anyone who thought darkness meant absence. He looked at her for a long moment, then set the sketch down with unusual care. You know, he said, when I first met you, you apologized before I had even decided what question to ask. Maya remembered. I was polite. You were bracing. She could not argue. And now Maya looked at the sketch. Now I charge extra. Dominic laughed then, low and real, and the sound filled the kitchen like something rare. 2 days before the gala, a letter arrived at the bakery. Not an email, not a text, a letter written on thick ivory paper in Blair's hand. Maya carried it into the office and closed the door. Dear Maya, I have written this 4 times and thrown away each version because I kept trying to make myself look better. I lied about the cake because I could not stand the thought of you being praised on my wedding day. That is the ugliest truth, but it is the truth. I knew you made something extraordinary. I knew it the second I saw it. I also knew everyone in that room would see it. For one moment I imagined them turning toward you with the kind of admiration I have spent my whole life trying to keep, and I panicked. That does not excuse what I did. Dad taught me that being chosen meant someone else had to be dismissed. Mom taught me to smile while it happened. I learned too well. You did not ruin my wedding. I did. I am sorry for stealing your work. I am sorry for making you smaller so I could feel safe being admired. I do not expect forgiveness. Blair Maya read the letter once, then again. The bakery noise continued beyond the office wall. Pans clattered. Jules laughed at something Theo said. The mixer started steady and loud. Maya folded the letter carefully and placed it in the top drawer of her desk. When she opened the office door, Dominic was standing in the hall. He had not knocked. He also had not entered. "Blair," he asked. Maya nodded. "Are you going to answer not today?" He studied her face. "Does it hurt?" "Yes." "Does it help?" Maya thought about that. "A little." He nodded. Some things did not heal in a single apology. Some things needed to remain closed while the hands that had broken them learned how not to reach. The night of the gala arrived under a hard, clear sky. The Art Institute glowed against the cold, its stone lions dusted with snow. Inside the halls were warm with music, candlelight black gowns, dark suits, and the low murmur of wealth trying to sound cultured. Maya's cake stood beneath a wash of museum light. For several seconds after the final assembly, no one spoke. Even Jules was quiet. The piece rose from darkness into bloom sugar glass, catching light like frozen fractures, flowers pushing from cracks in impossible places. It looked strong and wounded at the same time. It looked like survival without begging anyone to call it pretty. Maya stood before it in a simple black dress, her hair pinned back, hands bare, except for one thin ring she had bought herself after the bakery's first profitable month. A critic approached with a recorder. "Miss Bennett, who helped you conceptualize this piece?" The question was polite. The old Maya knew how to disappear inside it. She looked at the cake, then at the critic. "My team helped me build it," she said. "But the concept is mine." The critic nodded and wrote it down. "Not Blair's, not Dominic's, mine." Across the room, Dominic stood near a marble column with Marco beside him. He wore black as always and did not try to look less dangerous for anyone. But he was not beside Maya. He was not touching her. He was not claiming space that belonged to her. He watched. That was enough. Halfway through the evening, Maya saw Charles and Evelyn enter. Her breath caught despite herself. Charles wore a dark suit and a face that had aged since the wedding. Evelyn held his arm pearls at her throat, smile careful. They paused when they saw the cake. Maya felt Jules appear beside her. "Say the word and I spill red wine with purpose." Maya's mouth twitched. "Stand down, for now." Charles approached first. He looked at the cake for a long time. Maya waited for the correction. The insult dressed as advice. The reminder that praise was temporary, that success was luck, that she had risen too quickly and would fall harder for it. Instead, Charles said, "Your grandmother would have liked this." The words entered her chest quietly. Not enough. Still true. Maya looked at him. "I know." Evelyn's eyes filled. "Maya, it is beautiful. Thank you." Evelyn seemed to want more. A bridge, a softening. A daughter who would rush to comfort her mother for feeling guilty. Maya did not offer it. Charles looked as though he might say something else, then did not. For the first time in her life, Maya watched her father meet the limit of his own power. He could attend. He could observe. He could not define what this meant. The gala host took the microphone later in the evening. Conversations faded. Glasses lowered. Guests turned toward the center of the hall. Tonight's centerpiece dessert was created by Chicago's own Maya Bennett, whose work reminds us that beauty can come from pressure, patience, and extraordinary vision. Applause filled the room. Maya stood still. It came over her slowly, not like triumph, like thawing. She remembered the Langford ballroom, the stolen praise, the yellow dress, her father's envelope, Dominic's voice saying, "Tell them Maya." Now no one needed to be told. Her name had already reached the room. Jules squeezed her hand. Theo whistled from the back until Jules elbowed him. Dominic clapped once slowly, then again his eyes fixed on hers. Maya laughed under her breath because if she did not, she might cry in front of 500 people and a sculpture made of sugar glass. After the gala, when the cake had been served and guests were still talking with plates in their hands, Dominic drove Maya back to the bakery. She expected the night to end there. Her feet hurt. Her face ached from smiling. Sugar clung to the inside of her wrist. She wanted sweatpants water and possibly half a tray of leftover pistachio cake. But when Dominic unlocked the bakery door, the lights inside were already warm. On the counter sat a small chocolate orange cake, the first flavor he had ever bought from her. Maya stopped in the doorway. "You broke into my bakery to leave me cake. I have keys. That is worse. You gave them to me." Under emotional pressure, you said, and I quote, "Stop making Marco stand outside like a haunted statue." She smiled despite her exhaustion. The bakery was quiet. The brass sign glowed faintly through the front window. Cream boxes rested on the shelves. The room smelled like vanilla chocolate and home, though Maya was still learning to trust that word. Dominic took something from his coat pocket. Maya's smile faded. It was a ring, not huge, not theatrical, a vintage gold band with a small old cut diamond set low bright but not loud, beautiful in a way that did not need to prove its cost. Maya stared at it. Dominic. He did not kneel yet. That mattered. He held the ring in his palm and looked at her as if the answer mattered more than the question. "I won't promise you an easy life," he said. "Mine is not clean enough for that lie." Her throat tightened. "But I can promise you this. Your name stays on the door, your choices stay yours. I do not stand in front unless you ask me to. I do not call protection love when it costs you your voice." Maya's eyes burned. He lowered himself to one knee then. Not like a king, like a man choosing humility in the only room where she had become fully herself. "If you choose me, I will spend the rest of my life making sure no room ever makes you feel invisible again." Maya covered her mouth. For so long, love had looked like earning, like shrinking, like waiting for someone to notice she had been good. This did not feel like that. This felt like a door open in both directions. She looked at the ring, then at the sign outside, then at Dominic. "I am not saying yes because you saved me. I know. I am saying yes because you stopped trying to." His eyes changed. There he was, the dangerous man, the patient man, the wounded boy who had learned to guard because no one had guarded the women in his house. The man who could have swallowed her life and instead learned to step back from the frame. Maya held out her hand. Yes. Dominic slipped the ring onto her finger. It fit. Of course it did. He stood and she kissed him before he could say anything else. This kiss was softer than the one outside the Bennett house, but deeper somehow. Less fire, more root. When she pulled back, Dominic rested his forehead against hers. "You are sure?" Maya smiled. "No." His eyes sharpened. She touched his face. "But I am choosing." That was enough. Months passed. Then a year. The bakery expanded into the space next door. The wall came down on a rainy Tuesday, and Jules cried again while pretending to have dust in both eyes. Maya hired more staff, trained Lila to make roses, and started a small scholarship for young pastry students who needed equipment and someone to believe them before the world did. Blair sent another letter. Then eventually, Maya answered. Not with forgiveness wrapped in ribbon, just a beginning, coffee, 1 hour, public place. Evelyn learned to call before visiting and to leave when Maya said she was busy. Charles did not apologize in the way Maya once needed, but one afternoon he came by the bakery, bought a pear champagne cake, and paid full price without asking for a family discount. Maya considered that progress from a man who had once believed money was the only language worth speaking. Some relationships healed, some stayed distant. Maya stopped measuring her worth by either outcome. On a bright spring morning, she stood in the expanded kitchen finishing a wedding cake for a bride who wanted wildflowers and lemon cream. Lila watched her pipe small petals along the top tier. "How do you make them look so real?" Lila asked. Maya paused, turning the piping bag in her hand. "You do not force them," she said. "You give them structure. Then you let them open." Lila nodded as if writing it somewhere inside herself. Dominic appeared at the doorway with coffee. He wore a dark suit and the wedding ring Maya still caught herself staring at sometimes when his hand rested on the counter. He did not enter the kitchen until Renee waved him in with a towel like a queen granting access. On the work table lay a small gold plaque for the cake, created by Maya Bennett Vale. Maya picked it up. For 1 second, the old ballroom returned. The stolen cake, the lie, the guests praising Paris, Blair's smile, Charles's envelope, the girl in the yellow dress standing near the service door waiting for someone else to say her name. Maya looked around her kitchen, Jules arguing with a vendor on the phone, Theo sliding trays into the oven, Lila shaping petals with careful hands, Dominic leaning against the doorway, not blocking it, just watching her with the same quiet certainty he had carried from the beginning. Then Maya placed the plaque at the base of the cake. The bride arrived an hour later with her mother and asked breathless, "Who made this?" Maya smiled. Not because she needed the answer, because she finally knew it could never be taken from her again. "I did," she said. "Maya Bennett Vale."